a best practices model. First, we would like to extend our deep appreciation to the host, the Greek Davos House, and especially Ms. Irina Tantaraki, who is cordially has allowed us to bring this message of peace to the Greek House. And I will explain first the connection between the Greek House and the Middle East situation. The olive branch is a symbol of peace. It is associated with the customs of ancient Greek mythology and is connected with supplication to the gods and persons in power. Likewise, it is found in most cultures in the Middle East in the Mediterranean basin, and has become a near universal peace symbol in the modern world. It is also mentioned in scripture when the dove returned to Noah's Ark carrying an olive branch in its beak. Since that time, the olive branch has been a symbol of peace to the world, and we often hear the expression extending an olive branch to another person as a desire for peace. My name is Shoshana Beckerman. I'm the director of the Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics. We have initiated a groundbreaking project which began in Dubai, and you will hear very distinguished representatives from Dubai. We have various partners, including our distinguished guest here, which is intended to train future leaders of the Abraham Accord as a best practices model for conflict resolution and the establishment of a culture of peace. The project aims to serve as a guideline for current leaders and civil society around the globe and to build peace in the minds of men. This panel is intended to explore the economics of peace in the Middle East, and is crucial in the light of the events surrounding the current war in the Middle East, and will be vital in its aftermath to develop the tools to prevent future hostilities and atrocities. Basically, as you know, there have been billions of dollars, if we're talking about the World Economic Forum, billions of dollars that have been poured into the Middle East and especially into Gaza. And the result is a new war every 5 or 10 years. So we are here to explore the best practices model to prevent this in the future, and for the investments of the United States, Europe, and all investors in the Middle East to bear fruit and to bring the message of peace through our efforts. So I yield the floor to our moderator, Mr. Nadim Amar, who is the founder and president of the Or Druze Association.
Thank you. Hi, hello. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Really, it's an honor and privilege for me to be here. I would like to thank, of course, the host, the Greek House, and Ms. Shoshana Beckerman. My name is Nadim Amar. I came from the Druze community in Israel. I'm not sure how many of you heard or have any clue at all about the Druze community at all, or the Druze community in Israel. I'm the founder of the Or Association. It's an association to commemorate the legacy of my late brother, who was a Brigadier General Munir Ammar, who unfortunately passed away in a tragic event at a plane crash a few years ago. My late brother really worked all his life to promote cultural peace and education. And what I want here to spread the message, we are not Jewish living in Israel. As I said, it's the best place for us as a non-Jewish to live in Israel. And if this community can live in peaceful, in harmony with the Jewish and the Arab, I think everybody in the Middle East really can live without these vicious wars and the crimes and terrorists. So we are the best example and the best model to spread the cultural peace. We are the bridge between the Jewish and the Arab inside Israel and in the Middle East. This is because the nature of our faith, the nature of our religion, it's tolerance, acceptance, and accept all different religions, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian. So I would like if we can really achieve at this table here, at this room, to each one of us work really to spread his message. And of course, the economy, we really evidence that the Abraham Accord is really contribute a huge and important relation between Israel and the Emirates and the other countries. Hopefully, and I am sure and I am optimistic also this going, despite what we have in the long term, to include also the Palestinian and Israel together. I have the honor to introduce our first speaker here is Dr. Muhammad Abdullah Al-Ali, CEO of the Trends Research and Advisory in the Emirates. Ahlan wa sahlan. He will speak in Arabic and give then in English his speech. Ahlan wa sahlan. Thank you.
السيدات والسادة، أيها الحضور الكريم، يسعدني بداية أن أشكر التحالف البرلماني الدولي من أجل الأخلاقيات العالمية على هذه الدعوة الكريمة، وأخص بالشكر أخي وأستاذي الإمام محمد توحيدي على هذه المشاركة أو هذه الدعوة الكريمة لنا للمشاركة في هذه الحلقة النقاشية المهمة حول اقتصاديات السلام في الشرق الأوسط، التي تعقد ضمن الاجتماعات السنوية لمؤسسة غريك هاوس دافوس 2024. رفقت هذه النخبة المتميزة من الخبراء والمفكرين المتواجدين معي على هذه المنصة. برغم وصول الصراع في الشرق الأوسط إلى مستويات غير مسبوقة من الخطورة، ولا سيما على المحور الفلسطيني الإسرائيلي، فإن الحديث عن اقتصاديات السلام في المنطقة يعد أكثر ملائمة من أي وقت مضى في هذا الوقت. قد يبدو ذلك غريبا، ولكن كما أثبتت التجارب السابقة فإن يمكن للصراعات الكبيرة أن تؤدي إلى تغيير المشهد السياسي والمفهوم الأمني بشكل جذري، وهذا يتيح إيجاد أساس قوي للسلام ومن ثم اقتصاديات السلام. علاوة على ذلك فإن حجم الدمار الناجم عن حرب غزة على الطرفين الإسرائيلي والفلسطيني يعد تذكيرا قاسيا بالخسائر الفادحة للصراعات الممتدة، ويظهر أن المخاطر التي تهدد استقرار المنطقة واقتصادها ستظل كبيرة في ظل استمرار عدم الوصول إلى تسوية دائمة في المنطقة، كما يظهر أهمية الدفع بأفق السلام والاستقرار، وأيضا والاستقرار والتعاون الإقليمي البناء الذي رسخت أسسه الاتفاقيات الإبراهيمية. وتقدر التكاليف المباشرة للصراع الفلسطيني الإسرائيلي بأكثر من تريليون دولار منذ بدء الصراع قبل 70 عاما، في حين بلغت الخسائر الاقتصادية والاستثمارية غير المباشرة من جراء هذه الحرب مبالغا مماثلة أيضا. وبالرغم من ضخامة هذه الخسائر فإن التأثير الاقتصادي للصراع لا يقتصر على التكاليف المباشرة للحرب المستعصية وحسب، بل يتعلق بالمكاسب المالية والاقتصادية الضائعة أو ما يسمى بكلفة السلام. ومفهوم المخالفة يتعلق الأمر بالفوائد الاقتصادية وأيضا بإمكانيات التكامل الإقليمي التي يمكن أن تجريها التسوية السلمية. وإذا تم احتساب الفوائد المباشرة للفلسطينيين والإسرائيليين إلى جانب المكاسب المالية الناجمة عن نمو النشاط الاقتصادي نتيجة لتعزيز التكامل على الصعيد الإقليمي بشكل أكبر، فسوف نجد أن كلفة الفرصة الضائعة للسلام باهظة، فقد تصل إلى ما يقرب من 1.7 تريليون دولار بحسب أسعار 2023 في غضون 10 سنوات، وهذه الكلفة هي المكسب المحتمل لتحقيق التسوية السلمية في المنطقة. وبرغم أن هناك قدرا كبيرا من عدم اليقين حول مدى التنمية الإقليمية المحتملة والحجم المحتمل لأي مكاسب السلام، فإن انخفاض الإنفاق العسكري الناجم عن السلام وتوافر أيضا مناخ أكثر استقرارا للاستثمار والتركيز على جهود التنمية الوطنية، وأيضا الانخراط في مشروعات مشتركة للتكامل الإقليمي في حال تمت التسوية السلمية، كلها تحمل وعودا بالإسهام في الرفاهية الاقتصادية للمنطقة كلها. قد وضعت الاتفاقيات الإبراهيمية أساسا جديدا وقويا لاقتصاد السلام وأيضا للتعاون في منطقة الشرق الأوسط، وشهدنا بالفعل العديد من المشروعات الاقتصادية الطموحة التي ترتبت عليها، مثل مشروع الممر الاقتصادي الذي أعلن على هامش قمة مجموعة ال20 في نيودلهي، والهادف إلى الربط بين الهند وأوروبا عبر الشرق الأوسط، والذي يشمل مشروعات للسكك الحديدية وربط الموانئ البحرية إلى جانب خطوط لنقل الكهرباء والهيدروجين وكابلات نقل البيانات، وأيضا يتيح الكثير من الفرص الواعدة للدول المشاركة عبر خلق طرق تجارية موثوق بها وأكثر فعالية من حيث التكلفة، وبما يعزز مرونة سلاسل التوريد، الأمر الذي ينعكس بدوره على دول عدة في العالم بخلاف الدول التي يشملها الممر. وهناك مشروعات اقتصادية أخرى مثل مشروع الازدهار الذي وقعته دولة الإمارات والأردن وإسرائيل، وهو يعزز التعاون في مشاريع إنتاج الطاقة النظيفة وأيضا تحلية المياه المستدامة التي أعلنت العام الماضي. كما شهدنا ثمار للسلام ممثلة في الارتفاع الملحوظ في حجم التجارة والاستثمار المشترك بين إسرائيل وجيرانها في المنطقة، وغير ذلك الكثير من النتائج الإيجابية التي أكدتها الاتفاقيات الإبراهيمية، وأيضا عززت مفهوم اقتصاد السلام في المنطقة. لذا لم يكن غريبا على أن تحافظ الدول التي وقعت هذه الاتفاقيات الإبراهيمية على علاقتها الاقتصادية والسياسية برغم التحديات والضغوط الكبيرة التي فرضتها حرب غزة. أكتفي بهذا القدر وأكرر شكري وامتناني لكم ولكل من شارك معي في هذه الجلسة، وأيضا أشكركم على حسن الاستماع، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عزيزي على الكلمات المهمة والقيمة، ونتأمل أن نستمر في هذا الحديث وفي هذا، ونلتقي بعد شهرين في دبي لنتابع. I would like to thank you for your important words. Hopefully that we continue all together in a few months in Dubai. Thank you. Our next speaker via video message from member of the European Parliament, Mr. David Lega, who unfortunately could not be with us here today due to the last-minute difficulties. Mr. Fega is chairman of the Avram Accord Network in the European Parliament and has already scheduled a follow-up meeting with us implementing our most crucial goals. Okay, we're going to the next speaker. I have the really privilege to invite my friend, the Imam Muhammad Tawili, Vice President of the Global Imam Council. Imam Tawili has been with us from the beginning of our initiative on the Avram Accord. His leadership to promote and educate for cultural peace in the Middle East and be the most valuable in this important mission. Thank you. Welcome.
God bless you. You want me to sit here?
Oh, up to you.
Just sit here. Peace be upon you all. Salamun alaikum. Absolute pleasure to be with you all today. I would like to begin by thanking the Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics for their invitation. Secondly, I would like to say that I'm absolutely honored to be sitting beside my two wonderful friends, the excellent, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Al-Ali from Trends, and over here we have the wonderful dear Rabbi Abrahamson, whom you will be hearing from very soon. I want to thank you very much for everything that you said. I agree with you 100%. I look at things from a more realistic angle, and that is because we keep politics out of things. I look at everything from a religious lens, and I do understand that religion has a lot to play in whatever conflict we are trying to solve through peace and education. I would like to say that a lot of time wasting happens when we want to speak about solutions. Everyone has ideas, but nobody wants to discuss which idea actually works. Again, many people have ideas. Nobody wants to discuss which of these ideas works the best. Now, clearly, before the Abraham Accords, and before the peace that we saw throughout the Middle East, and I'm zooming in on the UAE, there was a nation that was different in its sense of education, in its sense of awareness, in its sense of preparation for peace, in its sense of accepting decisions by their rulers that would lead to peace. This requires generations of nurturing, of raising awareness, of educating, of testing, of examining, experimenting that it works or it doesn't, reforming an education system. Here is my bottom line. We have an education system model that works perfectly. And that is the one that we see in the UAE. And I will tell you this, if we try to develop something ourselves and introduce it, it will not be as good as the model that exists in the UAE. What I have proposed to the Interparliamentary Coalition, and what I have advocated for really since the beginning, and beginning meaning the first meeting of our organization took place in Dubai last year, February, was that we should make use of the experiences of the UAE, in the sense that whatever curriculum for peace is developed, it has to be in line, including the language of instruction. It's pointless to produce it in English if you're trying to solve a problem in the Middle East. The language of instruction is Arabic. Therefore, the peace curriculum should be in Arabic, and it should be accepted and it should be adopted. In order for this to happen, you need to meet certain very, very important criteria. Number one, we should not try and push religion through the throats of the people when talking about peace. And many times we hear this: you want peace? Reform the Quran. You want peace? Remove a few verses from the Holy Quran. You want peace? You need to ban books of hadith. You want peace? The UAE was the main driver behind the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia was not involved. We know it's the largest country in this discussion, but they weren't there on the table when the signatures were being made, were they? The main force, the main player, again I'm using geostrategic terms here, the main player geostrategically was the UAE. Did the UAE change the Holy Quran? Did the UAE erase verses? Did the UAE ban books? They never did any of that. What did they show you? They showed you leadership. That if you really gain the trust of your people, you don't need to change their religion for them to guide you. We have rulers who pray, who fast, who love their religion, and they love peace. There is no contradiction between loving your religion and loving peace. So we believe, as imams and as clerics and as people determined for the protection of our faith from extremists and terrorists, that the model that exists in the UAE has already been accepted Islamically and through the education system. It's been absolutely approved. So why not start replicating what already exists, however, with a zoomed in focus on peace for a more stable region. That's basically my 2 cents, and I look forward to a more detailed, elaborate discussion with the dear Rabbi very shortly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Imam Tawhidi. I think should the leaders of the world like this panel, I think we have a peaceful really. We have okay. What about Rabbi Yitzhak Dayan via conference to go now or later on? No. Okay. Our next speaker, Rabbi Yitzhak Dayan, former chief rabbi of Geneva for 20 years, currently is the chief rabbi of Saloniki and the UN representative of the Conference of Religious Rabbi.
It's on Zoom.
Yeah, via Zoom.
So I don't think it's you.
Next. We're going to go to Rabbi
Problem with the Zoom,
Oh. Okay, so the Zoom will leave for the last. Our next speaker, Rabbi Benjamin Abrahamson, Director of the Sadiqin Institution, Association of Muslims and Arabican Scholars of History and Law.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the people who have spoken. I can't agree more with what's being said here. And I mean, what are we doing here? It's called building peace in the minds of men. We're building it in the minds of men. The economics of peace in the Middle East and best practice model for education and the culture of peace. First of all, I'd like to extend my appreciation to Irina Ventarki of the Greek Davos House here for graciously hosting our panel and providing a valuable platform for our discussion. Their foresight shows no bounds as they allow us to give our voices trying to achieve a lasting peace amid the pressing conflicts that we witness daily. Why are the Abraham Accords relevant to the G7 and the World Economics Forum in Davos? And this roundtable attempts to answer that question by presenting the best practice model offered by the IPCGE, the Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics, the Abraham Accords Culture of Peace, Leadership Education Initiatives. The kinds of things we want to bring up are that we need to build a framework, that the Abraham Accords are part of building a framework for global economic recovery. The Accords showcase collaboration and economic partnerships between historically divided countries, offering a potential for overcoming regional or ideological rifts in the global economy. And Davos is a prime platform for discussing these kinds of solutions, and the Accords could inspire G7 leaders to foster similar cooperation on broader global challenges, leading to a more interconnected and resilient economic environment. And rethinking our regional security and stability, the Accords demonstrate how diplomacy and peaceful negotiations can achieve significant progress in conflict resolution, which directly influences economic stability and investment. And the G7 leaders frequently discuss global security concerns, and the Accords could act as a case study for the de-escalation and cooperation, potentially informing approaches to other conflict zones that impact the global economy. Leveraging innovation and technology, the Abraham Accords have led to increased partnerships in fields like technology and innovation between the signatory countries. And Davos focuses heavily on innovative solutions. And the Accords could spark discussions on how similar collaborations can bridge technological divides and foster the transfer of knowledge and resources, benefiting global economic development. Promoting cross-cultural understanding and social impact. The Abraham Accords encourage cultural exchange and people-to-people interactions, highlighting the importance of social cohesion and economic stability. And Davos emphasizes social impact and inclusivity, and the Abraham Accords can inspire and collaboration on an educational and cultural level, initiatives that bridge cultural divides and contribute to a more equitable global economy. And as director of the Al Tzadikin Institute, what we do is provide educational material to both Jews, Muslims, mostly it has an Islamic audience, but also to Jews and to other groups in the Middle East, describing the historical context of when we've gotten along. There have been times in the Middle East when there weren't conflicts. A lot of times there were, but a lot of times there weren't. And it's possible to focus on these particular points in time, to grab a hold of them, to realize how they worked. And these were not people that abandoned their religion, became more secular or whatever. These were people who were deeply religious and had peace for deeply religious reasons. And this is the kind of thing that the Al-Tzadikim Institute believes, that through education and providing context to the shared history of Islam and Judaism can provide us a context for deep religious people, people who are energetic and willing to work for peace, and give them a framework to do that in. The Abraham Accords show the importance of working with a common framework of language and shared concepts. For instance, take the conflict over Jerusalem. If it's a huge conflict, and if it's seen as simply as a conflict over independent claims towards a single holy site, there's not much you can do with that. However, if you frame that in both a Jewish and Islamic concept, as it's not just a holy site, but it's the Qibla, it's the direction of prayer for the Jewish people. It is the focal point of the Jewish people. It's the place that they turn 3 times a day to prayer. It's a place of pilgrimage. It's the place of celebrating holidays. We have Qurban, like Qurbani in Islam. This is something that, if you phrase it in a term, it suddenly becomes understandable why it's important to the Jewish people. It's not just a claim that we want sovereignty, but it is something that is very familiar. It's something that any Muslim knows what the Qibla is and why it's important. So by speaking in these terms, it's possible to provide more context and to have a deeper discussion about how a resolution could be worked out. Also, to attain peace, there has to be justice. And to obtain justice, you have to have dialogue between trusted, credible members of both sides of the community. And only through a borderless sovereignty, one that encompasses both sides of the conflict, can justice begin to be pursued. Only through a borderless sovereignty, one that encompasses both sides of the conflict, can justice begin to be pursued. The Abraham Accords provides this borderless sovereignty, appealing to faith, to tradition, and everything that the people of the Middle East hold dear. And this is the meaning of mu'min or ma'amin, a believer. A lot of times in the Western concept, you think of a believer as somebody who believes in God. But in the Middle Eastern context, a believer, a ma'amin, is somebody who is believable, somebody who is trustable, somebody I can believe what they're saying. And by uniting in an encompassing framework like the Abraham Accords, it gives a possibility that trustworthy and believable people can talk with each other. We can appoint the necessary vehicles for determining justice, and through justice we can bring peace, a lasting peace, closer. And indeed, the sense of mu'min and ma'min, of a believer, a trustable person, is the sense of that even in the West, the European political thinkers like John Selden and Thomas Hobbes and Goethe called that a proper citizen. We should look forward to the success.
Thank you for your tremendous work in the Middle East and in Israel and between Jewish and Arab and the country. Thank you. Our next speaker, my friend Dr. Wafiq Mustafa, who I know really for a long time as a professional medical surgeon based in London and a political analyst in London. He's the head of the Arab members of the Conservative Party, and he already wrote 3 leading books on Egypt and the Middle East. Dr. Wafiq Mustafa.
Thank you very much, Amar. It's really great today to be in this place in Davos, and I must say I'm very honored to be working with IPCG, with Shoshana Beckman for many, many years, and it's been very fruitful, traveling all over the world for the cause of the Middle East, of peace of the Middle East. For everyone is now clear to the world that the Hamas acted an extreme barbaric massacre 10 times that of what happened in 9/11. And that has to be borne in mind. I think the defeat of Hamas can only asserted succeeded by erasing the culture of hate in Arab and Palestinian schools across the whole of the Middle East as well, including Iran. I think myself, Abraham Accord is the first serious, promising normalization between Arab states and Israel. And it actually means business, particularly with this land trunk road between Haifa and Emirates going through Jordan, Saudi Arabia. I think it's very important. It may have some impact in Suez Canal, but hard luck for Egyptian, because they should have taken peace seriously 30 years ago. And now when I could see 150 flights between United Arab Emirates and Israel in 1 week, it's a really feat of normalization, not just paperwork, normalization between two countries. I think to reform the Middle East is very essential and cannot occur without reforming education. I've been brought up in Egypt. I went to schools in Egypt where hate was in all over the books I read. The first book I read was something about this anti-Jewish Russian book written about 150 years ago. So, and I was only 12. And I think from what I could see from my relatives in Egypt, from Arabs, the practical thing is to revise education, and revising education is to remove hate and to become factual rather than rhetoric, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic rhetoric. There's a lot of people say they're men of peace, but actually they're not men of peace. They're just a garment wearing to be anti-Semitic or to be anti-US, anti-British, anti-American. I think personally, with Imam, he probably might disagree with me, but I think Islam needs overlooking again. Because again, people look at religion not from the book, look at the behavior of the people. And the behavior of the people needs to be re-looked at. And I think Islam is not just a mosque-based religion, it's community-based religion. And that needs to be looked at seriously to see it like other religions. And when I say reform, I don't mean change the Quran, I don't mean change in Hadith, although I don't believe half of it, but I think we have to look seriously in the individualistic needs of every person, not to say, if you don't do that, you're kafir, if you don't do that, you need cutting your head, or so forth. I think it's very important. It might be a bit harsh, but that's the truth. I think the West can play a big role in guiding the Arab world into democracy and rule of law. Because there's not a single Arab country have got rule of law or democracy. There's some countries in the Gulf, like Emirates, as we said, are moving forward because of education. Education makes a lot of difference. If I didn't live in the West, if I didn't practice as a doctor in London for 50 years, I probably would have been the same like anybody in Cairo or Amman or Damascus, behaving in a really demented way about the world. I think it's important to look at education as well, and history, and the books. Books got to be looked at all over the Middle East. The good thing about this war, I think, is the last war in the Middle East. The last war, the Hamas, the elimination of Hamas is an elimination of the tunnels, is elimination of a lot of things, and stabilizing the Middle East. I think I finished my 5 minutes, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wafik Mustafa. Just replace with Mr. Khaljanana. Dr. Wafik, no. Just Imam Tawhidi would like to comment for 10 seconds?
Yeah, 10 seconds. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Saudi Arabia is not exporting terrorism. The UAE is not exporting terrorism or extremism or radicalization. Oman is not exporting radicalization. Kuwait is not exporting terrorism. Morocco is not either. The leading countries of the Muslim world and the leading fatwa councils, including in Egypt and Al-Azhar, do not export terrorism. So we do have a few bad apples in Islam, and that is normal. Islam is a religion, it's not a theory. Very normal that within a big ancient system that expands across cultures and ethnicities and generations, you're going to have some readings that are not exactly what the Prophet intended. Now, reform is not realistic. Again, when I spoke, I said it has to be realistic. It is man-made. Reform is man-made. Muslims follow only what we are 100% sure comes from God. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Tawhidi, for the 10 seconds. Thank you. Now, I just Dr. Wafiq, can you replace with Mr. Khalid Janan?
No.
Yeah, just a minute. We haven't finished. I would like to represent. Stay here.
Okay.
Just a minute. Okay, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Martin Olener, who really I have the honor to be his guest at home when he served for many years as a mayor of Lawrence, Long Island, the United States. Mr. Olener has so many titles. Among them is the chairman of the Center of Rightness and Integrity, and also president of the Culture for Peace Institution. Mr. Olener was appointed by former President Donald Trump and served as a member of the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. Mr. Olener?
Thank you, Nadeem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Beckerman, for all that you've done and what you continue to do for the world and the effort of peace. It's funny, our conversation today is about education and economics and how they play a role in peace. That's the focus of what we're doing. And so I want to start with a different paradigm, if you will, and I want to suggest to you that education has failed. Education basically has failed. And why has it failed? And isn't it time that we have to start a new focus, a totally new focus, not blame religion, not blame different things, but perhaps if we look at the different institutions that are involved and we look at where successes of fact occurred. Let's take the Imam's suggestion about looking at the UAE. The UAE exists because of it is what it is, not only because of education, it exists because of leadership, the very important leadership that that country is blessed with. It has Mohammed bin Zayed as its leader. And that, in fact, has changed the entire paradigm. So I suggest to you that we at the Culture of Peace Institute are beginning to study the different elements that are involved. Education is critical. No one can gainsay that that is the most important thing, but we have to look at education in new ways. Because if we continue to talk about education and we continue to work within the parameters of what exists, we will never get there, in my view. So we need to research what are the things, how does economics play a role? How does leadership play a role? What are the different elements that need to be studied and reviewed? Frankly, we talk about the Abraham Accords, and if we want to be honest about it among ourselves, the only success that the Abraham Accords had is creating a culture of a sort. But the fact of the matter is, if I went and asked my friends in Bahrain, or if I asked Mohammed bin Zayed, he would tell you that in many ways it has failed. It has failed to deliver some of the promises that it made. It hasn't, in fact, failed in the peace effort. There is peace. And there's conversation today, for instance, that we talked about, and Trends is reviewed so magnificently, that despite the war in Gaza, the Abraham Accords have stayed where they are. But that, again, that's a function of leadership, and we have to look at that carefully and understand why that is. Again, despite the fact that the critical element, let's talk about first, if we would, Bahrain. Bahrain looked for economic benefits. Unlike some of the other countries in the Middle East, it needed more jobs, more other things. Did it get those? The answer is no, it did not. No, it did not. And it is, in fact, entered into new agreements recently, new treaties with the United States in that effort. And in conversations with the ambassador, the new ambassador, I suggested to him that unless they get those economic benefits, they should be pulling out. Because how many times can you be hoodwinked? The UAE, let's talk about that for just 1 second. They were promised F-35s. They were promised a whole bunch of things. And what is it that Mohammed bin Zayed really wants from all of the Abraham Accords? He wanted only one thing. Not more buildings, because he has enough buildings. Not more commerce, because he frankly has enough commerce. He was looking for an ally in the days when he was attacked. And where were the allies that he expected to be there? They were not there. So again, from my perspective, the most important thing to do today is to try to understand, how do you achieve peace? How do you go forward with something like the Abraham Accords when there is daylight among different countries who are involved in that paradigm? So that is probably the most important thing that we have to do. We have to understand that we can't just identify one element. We have to identify many elements. And if what we really need to do is study why education has failed. Why have different countries failed? Have they failed because of religion? I suspect not. Have they failed because of a lack of nourishment by their leadership? I suspect that's an important element. But there are so many more elements. Why do some countries make it? Why is it that the UAE has achieved its greatness? In my mind, it's because of the leadership. It's because of the modesty that a leader can show. A leader who, when you come visit him, greets you at the door. How many leaders are there like that? That is what imbues confidence. That is what we're talking about. And in that regard, I think it's important that we look anew. We look at the economics. We look at what needs to be done. And particularly, what we need to do is not make the same mistakes that we've made. We need to look at the mistakes we've made. How many times, and I think that's a paradigm that this very institute that Mrs. Beckerman has focused on has achieved. How many times have we done the same thing so many times over and over again? How many times have we put money into rebuilding without the safety guards that are necessary for it? And I suggest to you that one of those most important safety guards, in fact, is education. No question. But there are other safety guards that need to be put in. So, for example, if there is one person or one group that have influenced and caused the decay that we've just seen, whether it's in Israel or in any other place, that element cannot be within the system in rebuilding. You have to make sure that those folks who have created chaos before don't get the opportunity to do that. And again, we're just beginning to study this. Education is certainly one important element, but I suggest to you that there are many other important elements that there are, and that is what the Culture for Peace of Institute is designed to do going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olner. Finally, I would like to invite Mr. Khalid Janah, Chairman Vision 3. Is it? Thank you.
Do the Zoom first.
Okay, do the Zoom first.
I'm Zoom.
Okay. So let's go back to Rabbi Dayan, who just I introduced to you by Zoom. Hello, Mr. Dayan. Mr. Dayan with us?
We're not actually.
Is Mr. Maybe Just to
Do you
cancel
hear
the
me?
mute.
Do you hear me?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hello, are you Rabbi Dayan?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Rabbi Dayan, we hear you very well.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased and honored to be with you. Unfortunately, at the last moment, I couldn't physically attend the meeting due to an urgent mission here in my community in Thessaloniki, Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, it's already 100 days that the state of Israel is in war due to the 7th of October events. Horrible and countless acts committed by Hamas against the Israeli society are direct results of an education based on hatred, particularly on hatred toward Jews. Today, I want to address a critical global concern: the existence of groups that disturbingly provide education based on hatred rather than on dialogue and mutual understanding. In an ideal world, education should be the pillar of peace, the pillar of tolerance and respect. However, the reality is that some groups use education as a tool of division, spreading harmful ideas and fueling conflicts. In acknowledging this, I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to appeal to international organizations to implement meaningful measures. It's our responsibility as members of the global community to shine a light of these toxic educational practices and work together to build positive counter-narratives. This doesn't just mean condemning hatred, but also investing heavily in educational programs that transmit values of respect, inclusion, and peace. Advocate for education that inspires hope, fosters unity, and eradicates the roots of hatred. I encourage you to use your influence to urge international organizations to condition financial support for restricting Gaza on the adoption of education aligned with the principles of Abraham Accords and of IPCG led by Mrs. Shoshana Beckerman. I speak as a member of the Standing Committee of the Conference of European Rabbis, and I am their representative to the United Nations in Geneva, and a member of the European Council of Religious Leaders. In the future, the rabbi promoting intercultural understanding and peaceful coexistence. For the future of our world, let's work together to build an education that transcends borders, inspires tolerance, and creates a world where diversity is not only accepted but celebrated. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Rabbi Yitzhak Dayan. Thank you. Yeah, let's again go back to Mr. Khalid Jannah, Chairman Vision 3.
Thank you, man. It's Janahi.
Janahi. Okay.
I've said a lot of big tribe there in that part of the world. Anyway, thank you very much, Irene. I mean, I did not expect to be sitting here because I'm just invited, but you asked me to make a comment, and I've been given 120 seconds, but I think I'm going to take a bit longer than 120 seconds. Thank you very much, number one. Number two, listening to all the speakers, I am grateful to listen to everybody. And by the way, you were right, Nadim, to call him Tawili because he's very tall. So it was the right thing for the Imam. I think education is important. But before we go to that education, we're trying to go around the issue rather than really talk about the elephant in the room. There is a big elephant in the room here that we're trying to avoid in a very nice way. I think the elephant in the room is what's going on in Gaza today. Elephant in the room is 65 years of conflict. Elephant in the room is basically lack of leadership, not only from the Palestinians, even the Israelis, but worst of all, the main client of Israel, which is the United States. And I think we are where we are today because of lack of leadership. And if we're going to go, Dr. Tawfiq, talking about the West teaching our part of the world where I come from, about education, about democracy, what's been going on for the past 100 days shows a lot that democracy is a dead thing. McCarthyism is the main thing now. It's McCarthyism 2.0 in the United States to the power of 10, the way things are going. I mean, I really feel bad being, especially with a country like the United States, which is polarized as it was, and now with the new McCarthyism happening there, that's a road to disaster for actually Israel and the Palestinians. So I think before we go and talk about education, which is a very important thing, it's important to really touch on and fix the problem that we have. The problem that we have is we have bad guys in top, whether it is in the Palestinian side. It's not, by the way, Hamas. I mean, I always say, if you want to do peace, you never do peace with your friend. You never do peace with your poodle. So doing peace with the Palestinian Authority at best is the poodle on behest. It's corrupt and it's working on behest of the Israeli government. So it's not. So you got to talk to your enemies. There are ways of doing it with that, and you got to fix the problem. But within Israel today, we've seen what's been going on in the past 12 months with the new government. It's gone too much to the extreme when you have officials, and we don't talk about that. We talk about education, but these are educated people talking about displacement of Palestinians, talking about basically that killing Palestinians is fine, it's okay. And if you, by the way, today in the US, if you even say killing Palestinians, okay, that's anti-Semitism. Today in Israel, in the United States, if you talk about anything against Israel, it's anti-Semitism. You talk about anything against basically the issue of Zionism is anti-Semitism. For me, anti-Semitism is basically the people who follow the Jewish faith and you are anti those guys. That's anti-Semitism. That's what it stands. So it does not stop me from education, freedom of thought, critical thinking, which are very important things as part of education. Because without critical thinking, education is a waste of time, waste of space. So you got to allow people to think freely, people to basically bring their ideas freely rather than being closed in a straitjacket, and they cannot talk about something which happened at the end of the 19th century, which is a political movement, Zionism, to say that's anti-Semitism. I totally disagree with that. As a Semite myself, I'm not Jewish, but I'm Semite. I'm more Semite than a lot of people who are following Jewish faith. So I think it's an important thing. Today, with the DNA, we can go for the test, and I can prove that. But I think it's important that we touch on the main issue. We got to deal with the main issue. When a rabbi, an American rabbi, tells me that the word compassion, it's lost. Nobody wants to talk about compassion about what's going on. And he is worried about coming out with it because the Anti-Defamation League will basically blast him as anti-Semite. I mean, that is the world we're living in today. So we talk about education. Education has to be from within for everybody. Not education talking about Hamas or whatever. Okay, get rid of Hamas, which I think there's a question mark because ideology is very difficult to get rid of. Get rid of Hamas, get rid of Iran, get rid of Hezbollah, get rid of the Houthis. Say that's tomorrow morning, all those we've got rid of. What's going to happen next? What's going to be the next red herring going to be used to carry on the process that we have today, to elongate the issue? I think education, we got to bring in the real leadership. We lack them across the globe today. There is zero leadership. There is a major deficit in leadership. But to come to the other subject, which is the main subject, which is education. Education, I mean, something that unfortunately I worked on with somebody called Samer Khouri. Some of you know Samer Khouri.
Can
as
we
a
have
Palestinian
some
guy.
quiet?
And I have to finish this one. We did this, and we did it actually because we were asked, and we did work on, because everybody was talking about lack of jobs in the Palestinian territories. But we did this, okay, and everybody fought against it, from Jared Kushner to Trump and to the Arabs who were basically sitting with Trump and Mr. Kushner. I just want to say education without fixing the problem is a waste of time.
Okay, thank you. We're not going to argue about that. And just one comment. One comment, Mr. Olner, as I'm Israeli.
I'll be very quick about it.
Mr. Olner, I'm not going to comment, but as Israeli, I'm not Jewish. I know one fact, that the Israeli education system educates for peace and tolerance, not for hate, where unfortunately I know the education in Gaza...
I talked about the leadership today. The leadership today. No, the leadership today
really,
is a problem.
We know it's... okay. Thank you. Okay. What about...
No, so look, I purposely avoided the big elephant in the room because that was our mandate. But I would respectfully disagree with you, and I suspect that your government, the Bahraini government, disagrees with you as well. So
we have freedom of expression.
No, I don't suggest that you don't. But to the extent that you speak for yourself, that's wonderful. And there are other people in the room; they should all speak for themselves as well. But to the extent that you were talking in some official capacity, I want to make it clear that you're not. Right?
No, I'm not an official. No, that's
right. So that's
I'm non-conformist, so I cannot be official.
That's the first part of it.
Thank you.
And the second part of it is
thank you for not having open discussion. Could we move?
Yeah, so I guess, are we opening discussion? So let me start by saying that...
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Ronaldo.
Our time is up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We have more time. We have more time for discussion. What about the video of David Lega?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just introduction.
You already introduction, but next speaker via video message from member of the European Parliament, Mr. David Lega, who unfortunately could not be with us today due to last-minute difficulties. Mr. Fega is the chairman of the Abraham Accord Network in the European Parliament and has already scheduled a follow-up meeting with us implementing of our most crucial goals.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, dear guests, and dear participants in today's discussion on the economics of peace in the Middle East, our topic could not be more timely, nor the situation in the region more urgent. To our sponsors, Greek House Davos and Trends Research Advisory, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your values of intercultural dialogue, scientific research, training and education, and the promotion of cultural heritage, social cohesion, and human development. And perhaps most of all, to Nicole Beckerman and the Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics. Thank you for the enormous efforts and sacrifice you have put not only into making this panel today a success, but into giving life to the long-term vision of creating a common standard of education throughout the Middle East region, which will sustainably support a culture of peace. There is indeed no more fundamental or more transformational project than this. Let me here also take a moment to express as well my appreciation for my own party, Sweden's Christian Democrats, and to my broader group in the European Parliament, the European People's Party, which in the EU and across all Europe makes up the continent's biggest and most influential political family. In these more than 4 years since my election to the European Parliament, and most especially of all since the unspeakable terrorist attacks of October 7th, I, together with my fellow Christian Democrats and EPP colleagues, and alongside so many other elected Europeans of goodwill in the European Parliament and at all levels of local, national and EU government, have denounced terrorism, have denounced hate in all its forms, and have stood strong for security, for prosperity and for peace for all people in the Middle East region. In such times of rising violence, we need every effort, every sign of solidarity, every step towards peace more than ever. It is my hope and belief that this discussion today might contribute towards stronger partnership between our respective organizations and constituencies, and ultimately to a clearer, more concrete plan for how we might move forward an agenda of generationally sustainable peace. And I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you in person, but allow me to just take one moment more to leave you with two thoughts. The first one, the October 7th attacks by the brutal terrorist group Hamas and this very costly war we are witnessing every day to eradicate Hamas from Gaza has reminded us of the essential need for a two-state solution to ensure Israel's long-term security as well as the long-term freedom and security of the Palestinian people. It has reminded us that the stability and the expansion of the Watershed 2020 Abraham Accords framework depends ultimately on breakthrough progress between Israelis and Palestinians. One vital element of this, of course, concerns the lessons children are taught from their earliest days in school. And I have been perhaps even louder and clearer than anyone else in the European Parliament in calling out the misuse of European funding over many years in paying for Palestinian textbooks, fostering an ecosystem of hate and anti-Semitism, and including even incitements to violence and jihad. I will continue to demand accountability. We in the EU rightly say we promote UNESCO and explicit Abraham Accords values of peace, tolerance and coexistence. Then we have to put our money where our mouth is. But the events of October 7th have also shown us, on the other hand, that breakthrough progress between Israelis and Palestinians is not possible without the support of the Abraham Accord partners. Indeed, it would not be going too far to say simply that a viable two-state solution depends now on the strength of the Abraham Accords framework. This is a step forward, though it can be hard to see it with war still raging. We have something to build on, and we cannot let it go. This brings me to my second point, directly relevant to our title. The Abraham Accords economic framework, including trade and education and tourism and people-to-people links of all kinds, is as crucial as the political element in fostering a culture of sustainable peace in the Middle East. In this sense, we might think of the olive, which Nicole has reminded us has always been a powerful symbol in both the Abrahamic and classical traditions, as a sign not only of goodwill, but of commerce, both equally essential for lasting systemic peace. As my good friend Tono Lopez Isturiz has often told me, as chair of the European Parliament's delegation for relations with Israel, that the Abraham Accords may indeed represent in its region the same first basis for cooperation, so thoughtfully built, the same first seeds of peace, so painstakingly planted in Europe in the post-war years, following centuries of terrible conflict and ethnic cleansing. Just as that European project has grown, one step of compromise and reconciliation at a time, into the European Union of today, a union constantly striving to be safer and fairer, more prosperous and more peaceful, so too this new framework for peace in the Middle East might, step by step, one generation at a time, even one textbook at a time, one olive trade at a time, bring together Arabs and Israelis, Christians and Muslims and Jews for a more promising future. This is my hope as a human being, as a Jew, as a Swede, and as a European, and as the convening chair of the European Parliament's Abraham Accords network. I will keep doing all that I can, as I know we all will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have not time for discussion. Only 1 minute for Stephen Scala, scientist advisor. Please, 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I just wanted very quickly to recap a few of the essential elements of the UAE education curriculum. It's intensely practical and oriented to nation building and future prosperity. Tolerance and coexistence is perceived and believed to open opportunities for economic and social prosperity in the future. That's perhaps the main and central pillar of the UAE education curriculum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for everybody. It's really fruitful the discussion. Thank you.